I'm delighted that we have two more speakers before lunch. The first is Vicky Wall, and then after that we have Father Andrew Black. And Vicky is a mother to a baby girl, Aidan Karen Wall, and at her 23rd week scan, she was found to have trisomy 18, and Vicky resisted the advice to have her baby aborted, and she gave birth to baby Aidan. And she's a spokesperson for Every Life Counts, a parent support and advocacy group, and she'll be speaking on making every moment count whenever a baby's life is short. Vicky is from Waterford, and we're delighted to have her here today. She's a very brave and exceptional person, and I want you to give her a very warm Belfast welcome.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. So, as you know, my name is Vicky Wall, and I'm from a group of parents called Every Life Counts. And I'd like to tell you about my daughter, Aidan. So in 2014, I found out I was pregnant on my third child, and I was absolutely overjoyed, as were we all. Well, maybe the older children were a bit put out, but being 16 and 14, you just don't want that kind of intrusion in your life. But we were delighted, and everything went well until our 20-week scan in Waterford Hospital. Now, I didn't know much about, this kind of thing, and I just thought we were going down to find out if we were having a blue or a pink, and that's all I cared about, was what clothes I was going to buy for my baby after this scan. So the midwife scanning us was very sweet, and she was spending a lot of time on us. But I was just so happy to see this baby up on the screen. It'd been 15 years since I'd had a scan, and I could see so much more, and I could see this little baby kicking and waving, and her nose looked just like mine, and it was amazing, so I didn't mind that the scan was going on longer. The midwife then looked at me and said, "Vicky, there seems to be a problem with your baby's feet." She explained that they were both club. Now that really didn't bother me. I just thought, well, we can fix that. Shouldn't be a problem. Doctors are amazing, they can do anything. And then she said, "It looks like there might be something genetic wrong with your baby, and that you'll need to go to Dublin to have this checked." I remember the first thing I said was, "What are we having? What's the baby's gender?" And she said, "You're having a girl." So there and then we called her Aidan. We got our appointment to go to Dublin pretty quick, within a few days, and we travelled up by train. We had no idea what to expect, and I was terrified. We had a scan, and after a few minutes, very short time, the doctor just looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, it looks like trisomy 18. I had no idea what this was. And then his next sentence was, "She's incompatible with life." I asked him what could we do, meaning how could we fix her? He said our only option was to pop to England for an abortion. This was our daughter. She was so active, she was so loved, and she was so wanted. How could she possibly be incompatible with life? Such a misleading, hurtful term. And I didn't understand it, and I couldn't really believe he was telling me she wouldn't live. I could see her on the screen, alive and kicking, and I could feel her moving. We were told to come back in a few days for an amniocentesis to be sure that it was trisomy 18. So we left to go home. I can't remember getting to the train station, but my husband said that we got a taxi. The train was really full. I obviously hadn't thought about the journey. And it was busy, and we sat at a table with an older couple across from us. And I remember crying like I'd never cried before in my life. And the tears just would not stop. And I would be a very controlled person, so this was unusual, but they just would not stop. The lady across from me offered me a biscuit. I couldn't speak to say no, so I just shook my head. She looked at my massive bump that I was ever so proud of, my daughter. And she said, "Have you long left?" And I just said to her, "I don't know." I often think of that woman on the train. We went back for the amniocentesis test. No one spoke to us about what trisomy was or anything about perinatal care. I felt very alone and very scared, but was trying to be very brave. I can't really describe how this feels. We hadn't met her, but we had huge plans for her. We loved her, and I would have given my life for hers. Yet she was going to die, and I didn't know what to do. The feeling of not being able to help your child and knowing that death was coming for her knocked the air out of my lungs. During my amniocentesis, when the doctor came at me with the biggest needle I have ever seen in my life, and they scanned why they're doing this, Leodin moved from that needle, which I always remember. She moved away, she moved up higher, and she actually twisted on the scan when she knew that needle was coming into her space. The same doctor that had previously said 3 days before that she was incompatible with life said, "What a clever little thing, she's moving away." We decided to stay with Waterford for our care. They were so kind, and they offered us scans and checks as often as we wanted. And seeing Leodin grow and moving each week was so precious to us. I know now that this is perinatal care. I was made feel like Leodin was getting the best care possible. Little things like when we would arrive for a scan and they knew us by name and they'd usher us in to bring us in, and that we didn't have to sit with the other mothers. And they just give us space and privacy. That just meant, it was simple, gentle care that meant so much. My consultant and GP were incredibly supportive at this time. And the midwives became my closest friends. I remember having a conversation with my GP because somebody had said to me, all we wanted was Leodin to live. And somebody had said to me, "Have you thought about what if she does live? What effect this will have on your life and your other children?" Almost making me feel guilty for wanting her. So I spoke to my GP and I said, I've seen other babies with trisomy 18, and yes, they're very sick. What happens if she lives? What do I do? How do I not leave her suffer? And he just so gently spoke to me and said, they won't force care on her, but we will honour her life. These little conversations are all part of perinatal care that stick with me. They're my strongest memories in all this, and they're so important for parents. I asked my consultant, was she in any pain or distress? And he said to me, no, she's fine and happy where she is. All she can feel is you loving her. He then said to me, Vicky, come out of work. Spend time with her. These are her moments now. These are her first steps. Make memories with her. So we did. We both took off work. And we sat around that summer telling her stories and telling her every day how much we loved her. We just wanted to spend what precious time we had with her. It was like we had been given permission to love her. And I needed to hear that. Her older sister played One Direction to her, putting speakers to my bump. I hated it. And her brother poured me a glass of milk every day to keep us healthy. He had learned this in school. They knew she was sick, and they just kicked into this really protective mode. Before they knew she was sick, they didn't want her. she was going to cause hassle and she was going to be noisy and touching their stuff. As soon as they knew she was sick, they were going to do everything and give her everything they had. That shows culture of care. Well-meaning people told us that we were getting too attached to Liadin and that my other children were getting too attached to her. My response was, we're not getting too attached. That is our daughter. We love her unconditionally, and so do her brother and sister. We are all fatal and we are all going to die. Do you not love somebody because you know they're going to die? Liadin's movements slow down. I still checked on her with Dopplers and scans whenever I wanted to, and she was growing and she was still doing well. One Wednesday afternoon, she'd been very quiet all day, and my friend called, and I was getting really worried, saying she'd been very still all day. She said, come on, we'll have some cake, and that will get her moving, as it really did. Sweet things would get her moving, and my consultant told me that she could taste this in the amniotic fluid. So after some tea and cake, she gave a big kick and a big stretch. I remember being so happy and just hugging her with my elbows and squeezing her into me and just saying, that's my girl, there you are. A short time after that, I got a very bad pain, and Liadin never kicked again. We went to hospital to deliver Liadin. My labour was very quick, and she was born at 7:07 on the 17th of August, weighing 2 pounds. She was 32 weeks. She was beautiful. She looked just like her sister. Looking at this baby, she looked perfect. You'd never know there was anything wrong with her. She had dark curly hair and lots of it. She had long dark eyelashes, and she had a little birthmark on her left butt cheek. Liadin had to have a skin scraping after she was born, and that really upset me. The doctor came over and she held my face and she said, I won't hurt her. She was so reassuring, and when she handed Liadin back to me, she put a plaster on her leg where she took the skin scraping. I still have that plaster. We brought a little outfit for her to bring her home in. It was very important to me that she was dressed as beautiful as she could be. The midwife treated her like a live newborn. She wrapped her in a blanket and she was touching her nose, I remember, and at one point even saying, she's a real grumpy chap. Look how grumpy she looks, because she did. She was really grumpy looking. All this is perinatal care. Yes, she was gone at this stage, but I was there needing to get through this. On leaving the hospital, they were very busy. And I didn't want to bring Liadin home in a coffin. I wanted to show her the beautiful city of Waterford on the way home. So I brought her home in a Moses basket. And on leaving the hospital, we were told that we just had to walk out of the hospital with her. So whether it was a coffin or a Moses basket, we just had to leave out the front door. So we wrapped her up in this big pink fleecy blanket that her granddad had bought her and tucked her into our Moses basket. And off we went. Now, bearing in mind, I had just given birth. So I looked a bit crazy. I was in my pajamas. And this woman was coming towards us from delivery suite that was walking off her pains. She was in labour. And her mother and her sister, I assume, were with her, supporting her. And they saw me coming with my Moses basket and my husband linking me and holding the Moses basket. And they came towards us saying, oh, look, a new baby, you're going to have your baby soon. Look, look, look. I didn't know where to turn, where to run, where to go, what to do with Liadin. And nor did I want the other woman to see her. She was going to have her baby. My husband is very proud of this moment because I always praise him for it. So he pulled me in close and he pulled the basket closer and he pulled the hood up over the basket and we just hurried past. They probably thought we were stealing her, now that I think back. That's where perinatal hospice failed. Waterford is an amazing hospital and every staff member down there was so kind to us and so caring. But these are the little things that have a massive impact on how you cope. We had a huge funeral for Liadhin. We released balloons. We had songs played for her. We had a bouncy castle at the house with a cake with her name on it. My priest was amazing. I actually rang him when I was in labour. It was insane. And, I'm in terrible pain. And I'm like, you have to honour this baby. You have to give her the best funeral ever. You have to make sure now she's so loved. And he's like, I know, Vicky, I know, she will. He said, whatever you want. He said, I'm going to do things for you that I wouldn't let anybody do. You can play that song in the church. We were having arguments over a song I wanted to play. So he gave in to me. I think it was because I was in labour. He wasn't going to. But these things, this importance of care, that's all it is, words. It didn't cost anybody any money. It was just care. We celebrated Liadhin that day for her funeral. My nieces and nephews had a great day, and they remembered it as Liadhin's birthday. Liadhin is a huge part of our family. Her handprints hang on our wall with our other family pictures. They call it the Wall of Shame. We celebrate her birthday every year. All our family and friends remember her, and she's very much loved and missed. She is the biggest gift I've ever had. She gave me so much in her short life, and I now have a new outlook on life from loving her. She's my precious little girl that had rights as a human being, and her illness didn't make her any less important or loved, and it didn't make it so that she deserved anything less than that. I take massive comfort in the fact that she lived her life with love, care, and dignity. I can talk about Liadhin, knowing that I never caused her any harm. And that's very important in grief. Grief is horrendous, and I'd never experienced it before. And I was even arrogant enough to think that I wouldn't grieve over a baby I hadn't met yet. I thought I'll be okay. I wasn't okay. It was one of the most painful, physically painful things I have ever experienced. My heart literally broke. If I was to mix ending her life in with that, as was said previously, my memories wouldn't have let me cope, and I know that. And yet I was in a position that I was so scared and so reliant on what the doctors said to me. That put me in a very serious position of if I had gone with their advice to go to England and end her life. People ask me, how can you stand up and talk and not break down and cry? And it's because I love her. Her life was short, it was brief, and it is a sad story. But she's loved. She's my daughter. She's given me so much. She's the least trouble out of all my children, actually. And I never harmed her. I felt very guilty about continuing with the pregnancy at one point because my children got very upset one day. It was something they had seen on TV, and they got very upset. And I thought, what am I doing to my older children? What if she lives? What when she dies? What am I putting them through? Should I not just end this now and let's get on with our lives? I did have those thoughts, which is where the protection of the Eighth Amendment comes in and protects mothers at times like this. But now I look back at Shannon and Tig and the way they talk about her. On Mother's Day, I got 2 Mother's Day cards, and one was from Shannon, Liadhin, and Oren. Brackets not Tig, because he didn't pay in for the present. And I got another one from Tig. She's remembered by them. She's loved. They know that we protected her and that we done everything for her. They also know that if they ever got sick, that I would do the very, very same for them. So that's Liadhan's talk now. I'm going to go on to a slideshow very briefly. So Every Life Counts is about promoting best care for these babies that are diagnosed prenatally with life-limiting conditions. At the minute, these are the words that actually doctors are using. So it's fatal fetal abnormality. That's what I was told. That's the term that was used with me. Incompatible with life. That's what we were told as well. A baby with no head in cases of anencephaly. A doomed pregnancy. I've heard that one. Babies suffer in the room. I can assure you now that there is no evidence anywhere, and I have looked high and low, of any of these babies suffering. That there's no human life to protect. Again, we've heard a lot this morning about who says what is a human life to protect? Who puts that value? Okay. So why should fatal fetal abnormality not be used? It's because doctors cannot say how long a baby with a life-limiting condition will live. As we know with the beautiful Kathleen Rose, she's 11 now. She's 11. This term is not found in any medical textbooks. And because most of these babies live beyond birth, even in cases of anencephaly. Because the medical literature says it's misleading and it should not be used in counselling. These are some of our beautiful parents with pictures of their beautiful children. I love this one. They're all so happy and smiling. We seek the best care for families where babies may not live long after birth. So perinatal hospice and palliative care, it's a model of compassionate care that begins at the time of diagnosis. So as I explained, the words using the type of care you get when your baby is alive and kicking, not to just be dismissed as, well, if you don't want to have an abortion, we don't want anything to do with you. I feel that we're getting mostly that in hospitals now, but as things are looking to change, we have to protect this. So it's the most beautiful and practical response to one of the most heartbreaking things that can ever happen to a parent. It's a pathway to healing. I have seen this in my own case and with others. It's a continuity of care. There's information, counselling and support. It's a better answer than ending these babies' lives. So it's a compassionate and holistic pathway of care. Welfare of mum and dad and baby is intrinsically linked. It really is. Like I said about the plaster on Liadhan, just knowing that she was cared for gave me peace and it was able to calm me. Pouring a lifetime of love in such a limited amount of time. But that doesn't make that any less valuable. If anything, it makes it more precious. If we all treated our loved ones like we'd never see them again, how happy would they be? Support from family and friends. I always find that they're very willing to. It seems to be the way it is, that straight away somebody will tell you that this is going to be okay. A chaplain present if required. There's a beautiful organisation that do photographs for babies that have either passed on or are going to shortly. It's a wonderful gift, and we have lots of lovely pictures of Liadhan. Personalised clothing and blankets. If you did come across this case with somebody, it's kind to buy them something. Acknowledge the baby. And memory boxes. Féileacán, another beautiful charity, do fantastic memory boxes where you get your little baby's handprints able to be done and a blanket in it, and it's so special. So there's going to be some pictures now of these beautiful babies that are part of our group. This is little baby Maya, and she lived for 1 hour and 13 minutes. And just so important to her mother, Kira, and she said that those minutes will last my mind and heart and soul for a lifetime. She was alive and kicking in my womb, and she was a determined little fighter. Beautiful little baby. So this is Aileen, mum of beautiful Liliane, and she was told that she wouldn't live, and she did. She lived for 6 days, and that is such a gift, to get. This is Grace and baby Lily. Again, beautiful pictures. I look back knowing I did everything I possibly could do to make sure she got here and knew she was so loved. And this is baby Lily, her mum Tanya. Her imperfections are beautiful to me. I am blessed to have seen her beautiful face and touched her tiny hands. Lily is an identical twin, and the other baby was absolutely fine, and Tanya again was advised to abort, and at each stage of her pregnancy they said Lily wouldn't last, and Lily lived after being born for about 3 days. So this is baby Sean, beautiful little baby, and his beautiful mother Sarah. So Sean was diagnosed with trisomy 18, the same as Leodin. And Sarah says, we wrapped him in love for those 2 days. We will never forget. Sean has made us the proudest parents in the world. Now, another little story with Sean. Sarah didn't receive, like I did, very good perinatal care. And she wanted to give Sean some fluids. And the midwife actually came in and said, no, you don't need to do that. You just don't. Now, that was very upsetting, and it's stuck with Sarah since. It's very hard to process that when it's your child. And so this is Mandy talking about her beautiful little girl, Cara. And Cara lived for 38 weeks. So this is me, and we call this all the girls together. This is me and my oldest daughter, Shannon, and baby Leodin. So the choice with these babies, it's usually a late-term abortion. The baby receives a lethal injection into the heart to stop it beating. I think of Leodin and the amniocentesis. And I couldn't even imagine ending her life. A new study has found that mothers are significantly more likely to suffer depression and despair when undergoing abortion after diagnosis of anencephaly. It's proven, we know this. Parents who carry their babies to term report experience great love despite their loss, and we know this too. Cork University Hospital has done a study over 12 years from 2001 to 2012, and it has shown that only 4 to 6% of parents aborted their babies when diagnosed with trisomy 13 and 18. Only 4 to 6%. Now that's in sharp contrast to the Rotunda, where they're claiming 50%. So we see there perinatal care and hospice, what's offered. We see there that it is what the hospitals are offering is depending these babies' fates. So the reality, so these babies have a severe disability, but we know that this doesn't make them any less valuable. They do not suffer in the womb, and after birth, their pain can be managed. However short their life is, it has value. Choice can become an expectation to abort. We know that the culture of abortion it goes from you shouldn't, which we have now at the minute, to you can, to you should. We know that. We know that's what happens. It becomes an expectation. Lethal discrimination extends to other less serious disabilities. In 2016, 9 babies after 22 weeks gestation were aborted for a cleft lip. A cleft lip. That's HSE information. It's there for anybody to see. So 9 children that were taken because of a cleft lip, which I think is the cutest thing. We have a culture of contradiction. In one hand, we're saying, honour these babies and children and people with disabilities, and let's do this and let's do that. And laws, we have laws in place in workplaces, we have the Special Olympics, we have, this wonderful, but they almost want to push this in and hide it and give it to us kind of in a sneaky way. They're dressing it up with compassion and kindness. So prenatal diagnosis, we know this is very important, especially Sarah Hines, the baby of little Sean. She always says that she is so sorry that she had the amniocentesis, because we know that as soon as these babies are pre-diagnosed, that they're written off almost, that the care almost stops before it's begun. And she feels that if Sean had got better care, that he may have done better. That's a horrible thing to be left with, a horrible what if. We all have what ifs when we lose a child, but that's an awful what if that she shouldn't have been left with. So we'll go now. Now, I love this. This is Kathleen. So Kathleen wasn't prenatally diagnosed, so she got great care, and she has a super amazing mum. So she made sure that she got everything she absolutely needed. And she's just so beautiful. I look at that picture, and I always have my what ifs too. And I just think, I know, you know what I think. Look at her, she's perfect. To me, she's perfect. So every life counts. This is the whole point of this. Every person needs to know that they're a source of joy, and they need to be celebrated, and that they are so unique. And only when all of our weaknesses are accepted as part of our humanity can our negative, broken self-images be transformed. To love somebody is to show them their beauty, their worth, and their importance. John Vanier. So that's it. So thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry I couldn't work there.